G'day everyone, welcome back to another edition of Govs Hero Review videos. Today we are taking a look at another past hero of the month, specifically the red heroine, legendary heroine that is, Flo, the breakdancing graffiti artist. So Flo first came into PuzzleCombat as the featured hero of the month back in January 2023. However, today you can only attain a copy of Flo if you are summoning her from the Manor of Legends portal, which rolls around once every 4 weeks. This portal does, however, have some pretty horrid odds, particularly if you're summoning for a specific hero and they are not a featured hero. It is only marginally better when they are featured, but yeah, still not great odds all in all. The portal odds themselves, so we'll take a quick look at those. We can see, that the odds are depicted there as a 1% chance for a featured hero of the month and a 0.9% chance for a past unfeatured hero of the month. So to put that in perspective, if you were to do 100 summons in this portal, you would have a 63.4% probability to get either of the two featured heroes, and you would have a 59.5% probability of getting any one of the unfeatured heroes of the month. So if you were to drill down onto those as a specific hero, so if you're going after a specific featured hero, the odds are still okay. It's 39.4% probability across those 100 summons. However, if you are going for a specific unfeatured hero of the month, it is just a 2.6% probability on those 100 summons of getting that unfeatured hero of the month. And this final odd will also drop off considerably more as more and more heroes of the month are added to the portal. So currently, there are 34 unfeatured heroes in this portal that will drop off as more and more are added to the portal over time. Heading back to her hero card, which I've now promptly lost, and we can start taking a look at some of Flo's specific details. But before that, let's jump across to a picture of her artwork. So here we have Flo's artwork. So thanks Xinspire for passing this one along, but essentially this is what Flo looks like. So she is the breakdancing graffiti artist. So naturally we have the boombox and the headphones and the bling that all breakdancers need. And we've got a single can of spray paint, which is, I guess, the graffiti artist aspect of it. So I would personally, whenever I've seen graffiti artists and street artists like that, they always seem covered in paint, whereas Flo looks very clean. So I don't know if she's too much of a graffiti artist or just a vandal, basically, with a single can of spray paint going at the moment. But anyway, that's her artwork. Feel free to pause it if you wish. The styling of the feet is also a little bit weird. She seems to be in the middle of doing like a twirl while she's doing the spraying, which makes even less sense. But anyway, that's her artwork. So as I said, pause it if you wish, but otherwise let's head back over to her card and we can so let's take a look at the rest of her card. I think I cut myself off a little bit early there, but anyway. So as with all of these heroes of the month, normally I'd talk about their family bonus at this stage of the review, but unfortunately Flo being a hero of the month, there is no family bonus at the time of this review. Maybe sometime down the track, SGG will actually add one to the old heroes of the month, but at this point in time, there's not actually any bonus for having multiple or any use of the heroes of the month from a family perspective at this point in time. Her personal stats, Flo has 679 attack, 761 defense, and 1,423 HP. So we can see a little bit of a skew going on there from that attack stat towards the defense stat primarily. There is a little bit that's shifted into the HP, but it's only minor there. The majority of the skew has gone from defense to HP. The other thing I will point out is that her power is sitting at 703, which is a little bit low compared to some of the more modern heroes of the month. You've got Thunk, that was the April hero of the month. He had 731, and the current hero of the month, Dynasty, has 732. So power is just a metric of their total combined base stats. So the more power they have, the more base stats they have. So, and vice versa. So Flo, being a little bit behind on the power creep scale, does have less stats to distribute compared to some of those newer heroes of the month. Her charge speed is set to 49 speed, which is average and requires 11 tiles to charge, or 6 ghosted tiles. The speed break happens at 50. That's where it drops down to 10 tiles to charge. So to do that, you only need a +1 improvement, which you can do just about any way like you can think of. You can do it using any of the speed guns in red. You've got the +7 Tigger Happy, which is a 4-star gun. Then there's 2 5-star options, which give +9, which is the Chekhov SVK and the Firewing Trig. Alternatively, you can also get this single break using just the class node, so the 4% charge generation node from her talent tree. But as I said, being a support class member, it is 4%, so it sits at plus 20 on a tree. So it's a lot of emblems for a single break. The double break can also actually be achieved because it happens at 58 speed, so that's only plus 9 improvement. So obviously you can do that using a plus 9 speed gun, so you've got the Firewing Trig or the Chekhov SVK, they both give a plus 9 improvement. Alternatively, you can actually do it using the 4-star gun, the Tigger Happy, which is a plus 7 weapon, if you combo it with the 4% charge generation node as well. So the class node is probably of situational benefit. If you've got a plus 9 gun that you're going to use on Flo, then you don't really need to spend all of those emblems on her. But if you don't have it and you really want that double break and you are going to use a 4-star gun, then, you know, probably worth picking it up then as well. Yeah, so I did talk about her class a couple times. So she is a member of the support class, which means that she has a chance to withstand negative status effects and charge cutting effects. So it is a pretty decent perk, ultimately. It means that you can withstand any status element that's coming your way. So it can be stat modifiers, it can be insanity or other charge control elements, or any DOT or anything like that. All of those can be withstood. You can also, with this perk, withstand charge cuts like you get from Dragon Fist or ACO and that, and also the Spy talent. So it is a pretty good effect overall. It's like the inverse of the Recon talent. So the support class, you withstand ailments, take damage, and can withstand charge cuts, whereas the Recon talent is like the complete 180. You would evade damage, get free charge, but take all of the ailments. So yeah, pretty good class all in all, I think, anyway. In terms of an actual emblem part, so if you're going to put emblems on Flo, personally, I would go the defense and HP route in order to try to increase her survival. So I'm just going to flip across to a support class hero and we can have a look at what that looks like. So basically, what the defense HP path looks like is it's something similar to what I've done here on Zigzag. So I have prioritized defense as the topmost one. That's just me personally. I prefer defense over HP. It does end up being a dealer's choice situation, so it comes out in the wash on in terms of the damage calculation. So you can see here, I've gone defense as the priority. If there is a choice between where I can pick up both defense and HP, I've gone that route. But if it is a choice between defense or HP, I would go the defense path. So we are going left pretty much at every node. And then we do pick up one right at the end and we go left at the final spot. I would probably advocate for stopping Flo at plus 18, generally speaking. If we look at those 19 and 20, the 19th node is an attack improvement and the 20th node is that speed improvement, which I did discuss is of situational benefit. So because I've got a plus 9 speed gun, I personally am not going to worry about it if I do ever get Flo. So that's the attack part, the defense path. You can also make quite an argument to go an attack route on Flo in order to improve her damage output. So that would look something like what I've done here on Amethyst. So this is the attacking path. So you can see it's a little bit inverted. I've gone attack at each of the nodes. Sorry, apologies for that. So it looks sort of very inverted. And as I said, I've still gone, whenever there's a choice between defense and HP, I've picked the side with defense on it. Once again, even going the attack path, 19 and 20 is probably of lesser value. You can stop it earlier without losing too much out and allow you to put those support emblems on another hero, because support is a very hotly contested class. So that is the attack path, but as I said, I personally would recommend going that defense path to enhance her survival and allow her to charge and fire that special skill more and more times. All right, let's jump back across to the portal and we can take a look at that special skill. Alright, so her special skill is titled Boombox Tag, and at level 10 skill and 49 charge speed, it will deal 200% damage to all enemies. It will then steal all dispellable buffs from the enemies and randomly distribute them onto her allies, and that will also apply even if the counter attack is killing them. And then finally, it will also apply a buff block ailment to all enemies for the next 3 turns, preventing them from gaining any new buffs. So a couple of things going on in that. So let's start off, as always, with the damage component. So I simplify my comparisons a little bit. I don't compare heroes based on damage because there's a lot of variability in the damage calculation. Instead, I compare heroes based on their attack power, which ultimately is analogous to their final damage output anyway. So attack power is just their attack stat, 679, multiplied by the percentage in their special skill, which is 200%, and then normalize it against the tiles to charge their skill. So we can see in the case of Flo, she does come out there as an attack power per tile of 124, which puts her in equal pecking basically with Wheels and Variant Marina. And then Flo. All three of them come in with an attack power per tile of 124. So that's not bad. Like, it's technically number 5, equal number 5, but if we worked it out based on some decimals and all of that sort of thing, her attack power per tile is about the 7th. But ultimately, she is number 5 of the 10 DOA 5 hitters in the game, or red DOA 5 hitters. If we did expand that list out to include all of the colors, there are 41 DOA 5 hitters in the game at this point in time, and Flo ranks as equal 13th of those options. So she is a fairly decent DOA hero in the scheme of things. Red obviously has some pretty powerful options. You've got Scarlet and Ruby and Barbed Wire are very good options, and then you've kind of got that middle pack of the 120s, followed by a couple that are further down. The really interesting thing with red DOA 5 hitters as well is that you can bolster them quite nicely by comboing them with either Cutlass or Rudolph. Both of those are going to give AoE 5 elemental defense down, which is something that only yellow can do with 8-bit. All of the other elements don't actually have a area of effect or an all enemies elemental defense down. So yeah, pretty, you look at sniping power. Sniping power is obviously much, much higher, coming in with, 3, 4, 5, 600 attack power per tile. But we also have to remember that this 124 on Flo, it's an attack power per tile per enemy. So because she's hitting all enemies, it is effectively multiplied by 5 or however many are still alive on the battlefield. So not a fantastic damage dealer, but also not a terrible one by any stretch either. Definitely in the upper end of the spectrum compared to all of the other DOA 5 hitters. The next part of her skill is the buff stealing. So she steals all dispellable buffs from all enemies and randomly distributes them on allies. So there's 2 really key things to note with this. So number 1, the buffs must be dispellable. So any effect which is listed as this effect can't be cleared, those ones are immune to this steal effect from Flo. It can only be ones that don't actually have that phrase, or they don't have any phrase after them saying that it cannot be cleared. The second thing to note is that the status effects are randomly distributed on your ally. So it means that even if you steal 5 copies of an attack buff or whatever, it does not mean that all 5 of those are going to be shared equally amongst your allies. No, you can have an instance where one hero actually picks up 3 or 4 or 5 of the attack buffs that you steal. And because they don't stack, they override each other, you end up with only one attack buff that is actually applying to your hero. So it is something that you cannot control. There's absolutely no control you have over that because it is randomly distributed on your allies. But it is something to be aware of, that even though you might steal 5 copies of a buff, you're not actually going to necessarily have 5 copies of that buff active on your heroes. I don't think I really need to go into too much detail to explain just how useful this effect is. It effectively acts as a full team debuff on the enemy heroes, like completely wipes out all of their buffs, but it also gives effectively an equal buffing to like your heroes, even though you can't necessarily control it. There's 2 additional little tidbits that I would like to raise here. So number 1 is the phrasing that's used. Interestingly, SGG here have used the phrase dispellable buffs, which is the unofficial term that the community has used, as opposed to the official phrase, which is actually in the game, which is buffs which cannot be cleared. So it doesn't really change anything. It's just a difference in nomenclature that, for whatever reason, SGG have changed how they're referencing these buffs. The other thing that I would like to point out is that additional information that I kind of pointed out initially. So this actually originated from a bug that I personally discovered and reported for Krampus long time ago. Back in the day, the way the skills were written and the way it's written in their skill is that, technically speaking, if the counterattack were to kill the hero, Flo or Krampus, they should actually stop their skill from progressing further, because the reason for this is that the order of battle executes skills sequentially, line by line. So because the damage is listed as the first thing, the counterattack is then calculated at the same time. So if they die from the counterattack, they shouldn't actually get to further lines on their skill. And this is something that SGG actually acknowledged. They said outright that this is a bug. Yes, you're right. And that they will fix it in an upcoming version. However, they never actually fixed it, despite numerous versions coming and going and me pestering them a number of times about it. Instead, what they did ultimately to quote unquote fix it was they just added this little note in. So they took sort of like the lazy route and made it the feature of the hero rather than actually fixing the bug. So yeah, rip to that. Anyway, off topic, I'm sure. The final part of her skill is the buff blocking. So all enemies are unable to gain buffs for 3 turns. So effectively, this is an ailment that applies to the enemies to prevent the enemies from gaining any new buffs. Confused? Essentially, what's going to happen is that any new buffs that would be coming from a hero's special skill are blocked from applying to those heroes. It doesn't apply to any existing buffs that the heroes would have had. Not that these buffs are there anyway, because they have been stolen, but it doesn't stop anything which has been like dodged or evaded or withstood or anything like that. It only applies to blocking new buffs from those heroes. It is obviously an ailment, which means that it can be withstood, it can be resisted, it can be cleansed. All of those things will actually prevent or remove the buff block from existence. There is a little bit of a niche case, which I am a bit curious about. I haven't been able to test it, but I do wonder what would happen if you had Flo on one team and Krampus on the other team. So in the first time, there was a whole bunch of buffs. Flo steals all of those buffs and then obviously applies the buff block to all of her enemies. I wonder what would happen then if Krampus fired his skill, because he technically should steal all the buffs back and give the buff block ailment to Flo's team. So I wonder what would happen if they would like cancel each other out and you'd end up with no buffs existing, or if there'd be some sort of weird thing that happens where everything happens. Anyway, just an idle thought. I have no idea how it would actually execute, but I am a little bit curious. So if anyone does know how that executes, I'm more than happy to hear from you in the comments of this section of this video. So overall for Flo, I think she is a pretty good hero. The buff stealing and blocking does give her a lot of uses in the raid arena, particularly against defense teams that might feature heroes like Ayumi or Hypernova or any others that are very dependent on creating buffs to be defensively useful. The obvious comparison that Flo is always going to have is to Krampus. Both of them are AoE 5 heroes. Both of them do this buff steal and redistribution. Where they really differ is Krampus is a bit faster, but Flo has better stats. Flo also has more damage compared to Krampus, but Krampus will also redistribute all the ailments from your team back onto the enemy team. So if I was put in the position where I was forced to choose with a gun to my head between one or the other, I'd probably pick Krampus, just on the basis of that ailment reallocation effectively acts as a cleanse, as well as the dispel on the other team. It is also, speed does count a little bit towards it. Krampus already has that single break up on Flo, but they both can double break to the same effective speed. So anyway, both of them, they're solid choices. Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, Flo acts as like a red alternative to Krampus. So it does mean that you can stack 2 different colors with this buff redistribution effect, rather than necessarily having to rely continuously on Krampus as an off color or a purple strong stack hero. So for Flo's grading, I'm going to give her an A- for war and raid attack situations. I think she's a very good hero to use in attack situations. Usable on defenses, but I think very much for war and raid attacks, that's probably going to be the best spot for her application. In the war machines, there's nothing really that lends her to being a war machine hero, so I'm going to give her a C grade here. Similarly, for eventing, that she's not contributed anything there either, so I'm going to give her a C+ in that situation, or a C grade as well there. For the war and raid defenses, I'm going to give her a B grade. Personally, I think she is best suited to the flank position, ideally in position 2, because this means that she can fire and steal all the buffs before the rest of her allies fire their skills. She can work at tank because of her defensive stats, but I don't know. I rank her probably better as a flank position in the end. Our 3 tournament settings. So we've got the Bloody Battle up front. There's nothing really in her skill that is good or bad for a Bloody Battle effect, so I'm going to give her an A- for attack and a B grade for defense. In the buff booster tournament, this is a really, really great application, obviously, because there's buff heavy defenses and buff heavy attack teams. So I'm going to give her an A+ for buff booster tournaments attacks and an A- for buff booster tournament defense. Finally, we have the Charge Attack Tournament, which is where they go from their base speed up to 65. So Flo does get an improvement going from 49 to 65. So I'm going to give her an A grade for Charge Tournament Attack and a B+ for Charge Tournament Defense. And overall, that comes out as being a B+ for her overall attack grade and a B+ for her overall defense grade. And that pretty much concludes the content that I have for this review of Flo. As always, these are just my personal thoughts and opinions on the heroes. I do love hearing your thoughts and feedback, so please do jump down to the comment section of the video. I do like reading your responses, and I try to reply as much as I can. If you did enjoy the video and found it to be good, useful, helpful, and all of that, feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel, but most importantly, share the video around, because if this sort of thing is useful for yourself, it's also likely going to be useful to the people you play with as well. Thank you once again for tuning in and joining me for this review. I do hope that I will see you again soon, but until then, good luck, stay safe, and happy gaming. Cheers, bye!